Okay, I think you can. All right, we'd like to call the special meeting to order. It's 5:05. Starting with roll call. Chair Irby Dominguez is absent. Vice Chair Jean McCloskey present. Secretary Janelle Lewis is absent. Board Member Frank Maynard. Here. Soon to be Board Member Cora Lynn Holliman. Here. We're going to start with the swearing in of Cora Lynn, and Kate Zemke had issues and was not able to attend. So Cora, if you would stand, I would be honors. You repeat after me. Okay. Raise your right hand. I, Cora Holliman.
I, Cora Holliman,
Do solemnly swear
that
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon.
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon.
I will faithfully and honorably discharge the duties
I will faithfully and honorably discharge the duties
of the MAPS Aquatic Center District Board Position 4
of the Madras Aquatic Center District Board Position 4
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
to the best of my abilities. So that.
Congratulations. Aim for a motion to adopt the agenda. Do we have Brenda on Zoom?
She is on Zoom. Do you want to do the vote on the adoption?
Oh, yes, please. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Hello, Brenda, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
It's
All right. Oh. Sorry, Brenda, I'll pull up the.
I'm going to look up my copy that I have on the screen, but I'm going to be looking at the, oh yeah, I see. I'll be starting with the actual audit report. You let me know. Uh-oh. There it is. You let me know when you're ready for me to go.
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Well, thanks for having me. I'm going to start with the audit report. And where I'm at is going to be page 1 of the financial statement. If you're looking at a PDF, I'm not 100% sure what page number that is. Let's see.
The independent auditors report.
Yep, looking at the independent auditors report. All right, so starting with page 1, that very first paragraph, this is our opinion paragraph where we state that the financial statements are reasonably stated for the year ended June 30, 2025, and that's what you're looking for. We want to have an unmodified opinion there. There at the bottom, starting at the bottom of that page, we have an additional paragraph. It's called an emphasis of a matter paragraph, and this is where the auditors call things out that may be important to users of the financial statements. And in this case, we're drawing attention to the deficit general fund balance on June 30, 2025. And then we're also at the top of page 2, as part of that paragraph as well, we are calling out the note disclosure 2, indicating the existence of what we call a going concern. It's a material uncertainty that casts doubt about the district's ability to continue as a going concern. And as we note there at the end of that paragraph, we're not modifying our opinion on the fairness of the financial statements on June 30, 2025. We're just calling out a footnote and a condition that existed as of June 30, 2025. So I wanted to pause there and just see if anybody has any questions about that. It is further described in footnote 2.
Any questions? Nope.
Right. Perfect. Okay. Well, this first report is our report on the financial statements. And so that's the very first thing that we do. That's the bulk of what we provide services for the district. But at the very back of the reporting package is another report, and this is the Oregon State report. So that's on page 33. It looks like perhaps page 39 of the PDF, if you're looking at a PDF. But this is the independent auditor's report that's required by Oregon state regulation. So in addition to the financial statement audit, which is required by Oregon law, the state does ask us to take a look at compliance. So right there in the middle, we're looking at compliance, and there's a bulleted list toward the end of the things that we look at for compliance. The biggest things we probably spend the most time on are budgets, making sure that insurance and fidelity bonds are in place, and also looking at public contracts and purchasing. And so the one thing that we're calling out there is in note 11, the ending fund balance and the general fund being negative. That's generally something that you don't want to see in accordance with budget law. So we have to call that out and call that out to the users of the financial statement to look at note 11. And then we also have some, and I know everybody's fully aware of this, that there was an issue in adopting the district's budget for June 30, 2026, where there were 4 members of the committee voting to approve, but the majority of the members weren't there. And so it should have been stopped. And I know that the district was looking into this and working with the state. So unless anybody has questions for me, I'm sure, let me know if you have any questions about that, but we're just putting that in our report because it did exist. Okay, no questions?
No, not seen any.
All right, thank you. And so that's it for that report. Basically, what we do is we say, we're looking at those processes, and then we say, other than those couple of things there, nothing else came to our attention that would make us think that the district wasn't in compliance with other laws and regulations that we looked at. And so I am going to then move on to what we call our post-audit letter. And this is the letter that we write after the audit to the board. It has a lot of the same content as is what in our report. Excuse me. But it has a few other things that our Professional Standards Center wants us to share with the board as we wrap up the audit. So our right there at the letter in the first paragraph talks a little bit about our responsibilities. Our responsibility is to plan and perform our audit to obtain reasonable assurance about the financial statements so that we can provide that opinion. Moving on to kind of the bottom of the second page of the letter, one of the things that we do like to call out is that we're very careful to be independent so that users can rely on our opinion of the financial statements. And so we want to share that we did comply with all of the ethical requirements regarding independence during the course of our audit. Top of the third page of that letter, we always do this. This is part of what we do, what all auditors do when planning an audit. We take a look at both the industry and the organization and say, where are the significant risks? And that's an auditing terminology. It simply means that that's where we're going to spend a lot of our time. And so right there at the top there, the areas that we identified for significant risk are charges for services, the recreational revenue. The going concern, we did spend some time there. That is something that's not always present, and so we spend some time there. And then that third one is management override of controls. That's in all audits. That's just recognizing the fact that management does have that opportunity. Even if you have great controls in place, management does have an opportunity to override those. And so we look at that and we spend a significant amount of time on that as well. So then moving on to significant accounting policies. During the year, there was a new GASB standard implemented, and that was called GASB 101. It's compensated absences. And basically what that is it's a change in the way that governments are required to report their employee leave. And so really the biggest change, and this would be consistent across all governments in the state of Oregon, is really including sick time that's expected to be used in future years. And so that is something that we haven't accrued in the past. It's mostly just been those things that were vested. And so oftentimes this caused the compensated absent liability to grow a bit because now we're including a whole different type of sick time. And then the other thing that the district implemented was called GASB 102, and it really requires management to assess impacts for constraints and concentration. Management concluded on this one that there were no situations that met those disclosures, so you're not seeing a GASB 102 disclosure within these financial statements. Moving on to significant estimates. Again, it's really that leave liability. It's new. It contains a lot of estimates or judgments about how employees are going to behave in the future with the sick leave that they've earned, and also it how people behave with PERS and such. And so there's a lot of estimation in that number. And so we just want to call that out. It could change based on history. You're going back and looking to see how people have behaved in the past to try to project how they're going to behave in the future. Let's see. Financial statement disclosures, we do like to call out what disclosures involve significant judgments or might be particularly sensitive because of their significance to users. And again, I'm just going to call out the going concern condition footnote, which is described in note 2. We didn't identify any significant or unusual transactions during the year. We didn't identify or have any suspicions of fraud, nor did we have any significant difficulties encountered during the audit. And then we are required to talk about uncorrected and corrected misstatements. We are looking at, there was a reclassification of grant revenue, really just because it was more for use of the facilities. And then we did do an adjustment to the property tax deferral. So just a couple small journal entries there. One was a reclassification. And then we talked about that. Yeah, so really that's really all the things I wanted to cover here. No other significant matters or findings or issues as we went through the course of our procedures. So those are the things I wanted to share, and of course, just open it up if anybody has any questions.
The GASB 101, the compensated absences, and how you type, and that's what's tied in with note 11, correct?
I'll have to look at the financial statements real quick. Yeah, that should be note 11.
I just want to make sure I understand if that was a policy change that the district had or a policy change within the state.
Policy change in the nation. It was a policy change for every government that reports in the United States, actually. So all of the governments, unless they're reporting on the cash basis, were required to adopt that new standard. And mostly what I saw with our clients was it affecting pulling in sick leave as a liability, which we really haven't had to do before. The previous standard was really about vesting. So in other words, if I have vacation time that's vesting, meaning I can take it in cash when I leave or retire or resign. But sick leave's usually not handled that way. Usually it's a use it or lose it type of thing. And so the new GASB standard, which is nationwide, says even if it's use it or lose it, we want to see a liability for the estimate of what you think employees will use in the future.
So you're bringing it to our attention so that when we do our budgeting next year, that's included in the numbers.
I'm bringing it to your attention because we're required to bring to your attention new accounting standards that are in your financial statements. But in terms of budgeting's more of a cash basis. You know, the people have always taken sick leave. So this just records a liability on your government-wide statements, which really doesn't affect your budgeting. So there's really a disconnect there. I'm required to bring it to your attention, but where you see this is on your full accrual statements, and where the budget lives and is monitored is more on those fund statements. Those are more relevant to your budgeting. So I don't think it'll change your budgeting.
On the balance sheet to reflect it, or is it not worth? Because usually that's where these things lie, is on our balance sheet as a liability, but it doesn't impact the budget necessarily. It's just something we know is out there. Is there some benefit to that, or is it better to just leave it as a function of the audit?
Well, it is on your balance sheet. It is on your full accrual balance sheet. I might have missed the first part of your question too, Courtney. It kind of went blank there a little bit, but it is on the balance sheet, but it's on the full accrual statement. So the standard doesn't require you to put it on the balance sheet of your fund statements.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Oh, good. Any other questions?
No, but a quick note for the record, Chair Irving Dominguez showed up at 5:15.
And Janelle joined via Zoom at 5:07.
Oh, very good. And now you get to take over.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for Brenda?
She can continue.
Under the corrected misstatements, the reclassification. Sorry, not that one. The negative ending fund balance part that I don't know where you brought that to our attention. Is that just something that was unavoidable, or is there a recommendation that you have for next year if we find it in the same position?
I'm not sure what you mean by unavoidable. It is something we have to report if it exists on June 30th. If your liabilities exceed your assets, that creates an ending fund balance that is negative. And that is one of the things that we want to see in the state is a balanced budget. And so it sort of, if you have that negative resources going in, what they want to see is a correction in the future, you know, of spending less and getting it back down to zero. So I'm not sure exactly if that's your question, but we are under GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. You are required to report a negative ending fund balance in the financial statements. But and only if it exists, and it exists when your liabilities exceed your assets. Does that answer the question, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions for Brenda? Okay, thank you, Brenda.
All right. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, I apologize for being late. We were just, usually on Fridays, we were pretty slow, but today we were just completely hammered. So I apologize for being late. So, okay. So number 5, consider authorizing the executive director to sign an engagement letter with BBK Law to provide litigation representation for the district. And this is our handout, right?
Yeah, so board members, what you have in front of you is an engagement letter from BBK Law out of Bend. Our attorney through local government law connected me with 2 different litigation attorneys to interview. One was from Portland and one was from Bend. And given the case that we're going to be working on, felt that it was better for us to go with the Bend firm because of their closeness to us. And if they have to come over in person, you're paying less than you would if they're coming from Portland. So the engagement letter before you is sitting in my inbox waiting for a DocuSign if the board approves it. And they are prepared to join us for the executive session this evening.
I'd just like to note for the record that I'm gonna abstain from this agenda item.
Recuse.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well.
because abstain is when you're voting.
Well,
recusing
voting,
is-
abstain from discussion and voting.
They want an initial advance deposit.
So so we do have insurance coverage for this particular litigation up to $25,000. If the case is not dismissed early, then they expect we will exceed the $25,000 threshold. And so
Wait, if it's dismissed early, they think
it will not,
exceed-
we will not, I'm sorry, we will not exceed the 25,000, but if it goes beyond a few months or a few motions, then it could go beyond the 25,000. And so the $10,000, they expect to go through that pretty quickly.
So where are you thinking we're gonna pull the $10,000 from to engage?
So we will have at our January 20th, the January meeting, we'll have our mid-year budget review.
Yeah,
And as part of that, we are going to have to do a budget adjustment because we've already exceeded our legal budget 3 times what was budgeted. And then this is an additional budget. This is an additional expense that was not included in the original budget.
so where are you thinking we'll take it from?
We're gonna have to take it from other materials and service areas or from capital.
Now, thought we have to come up with the 10,000, correct?
Well, so we pay for all of it
Yeah,
and then
and
we
then
submit a
we-
reimbursement
Okay. Okay,
once we get to the end of the litigation.
right.
So we'll get reimbursed up to 25,000 through insurance.
Well, I'll make a motion that we authorize the executive director to engage with this BBK attorneys at law for the pending litigation.
Question.
Second.
No, you got some.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't. District.
The board represents the district.
I'm not sure that legally answers the question if they are represented. Or the board directs them or.
Yes, so the board is because the district is the client, a majority of the board directs their work.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah. Is there any other discussion? I'm sorry, I jumped it. Is there any discussion?
No, do we have any?
Quarters out.
I've got Janelle unmuted, I think.
And I think Janelle seconded the motion.
She did.
Okay, so I don't think so. I think it's something we need to do. So any other Yeah, anybody else want to say anything else? We get it. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against?
I was an I.
Okay, perfect. So, and then the record shows that Cora accused herself from
And abstain from
and
voting.
abstained from voting. Perfect. Okay. Now we move on. Number 6, consider approving Madras Aquatic Center hours for operation for February 25 to June 13, 26.
Okay, board members. So in your packet, there is a cover memo. I had sent a draft to you earlier this week, and then updated it a little bit and then included it in the board packet. Just as a reminder, the staff had brought you a proposed schedule for spring, and the spring hours, as a reminder, from February 25th to June 13th, 2026. At the last board work session, you guys discussed it and had requested that staff look at splitting our open swims like we used to do. So going back to a 2-hour open swim versus a 3-hour, which we currently offer, and then offering on Saturdays a 2-hour swim, a 30-minute break, and then a 2-hour swim. And so took that recommendation or that consensus of the board back to our staff team, and we plugged into the cost recovery the difference between a 2-hour and a 3-hour open swim. And as you would expect, a 2-hour open swim cost recovers more quickly and easily than a 3-hour open swim, because you use less staff time for 2 hours versus 3. We also felt as a team that, there's a lot of pros to moving to a 2-hour open swim with a 30-minute break in between. The biggest one being that our hourly staff can get a break without impacting how many guards we have available on deck. And so we really like that piece of going back to a 2-hour open swim. There was some concern of some of our, what I call core 5. Just as a reminder, the core 5 staff are your 3 full-time staff, including myself, and your 2 part-time staff. We're the 5 who are here most mornings, most times that the pool is open. So I took it back to the team, and there was some concern about turnaround times. If you have a party rental in the first open swim, they have historically had 15 minutes to clean up, and then the next one would set up 15 minutes beforehand. So we're going to have to shrink that down to 10 minutes and then make it so our staff can clean and get them all transitioned for the next. I think it's doable. And that's what I said to our team. We can totally do it. Within the 30 minutes that we have. It'll just be a little bit of retraining for some of our staff and for our patrons. We developed as a team 3 options, and I wanted to give you, we always talk about when we're discussing things, what are our outcomes that we're looking for? And we really talked about one of the outcomes needing to be retaining cash flow sufficient for the summer. As Brenda noted, the way you affect a negative ending fund balance is you reduce your expenditures. For us, that's really important if we want to have cash flow going into the summer. So we wanted to make sure that we were retaining cash flow sufficient for the summer. We wanted to make sure that we were responding to patron requests in a balanced manner. So as you'll see in the data within the cover memo, people who come for open swims and drop in have different requests and wants than people who have memberships and swim every day. And so people that want to use the slide have a different request in terms of timing than someone who wants to come in and do an independent workout in the lazy river. So for us, it's really important to maintain a balance for all of those different stakeholders that use the MAC. And then lastly, we really want to align with seasonal staff availability. And this is because over the last 5 months, 3 months since we've been open in October, we've had terrible seasonal staff availability. And so your core 5 are lifeguarding essentially all the time. And it impacts our ability to do a lot of different things. Quality program planning and evaluation. For Peyton to have time at her desk to look at swim lesson evaluations and then implement changes and train staff, we just haven't had time to do it because she's been in the chair a lot. Marketing and patron services, community engagement and partnership development. These are things that don't happen when your core 5 are lifeguarding. And so we really wanted to try and maximize how much time seasonals could work. And so those were the three outcomes that we were looking for. And we have three options that were developed, and the core five are recommending option two, because we feel that those three outcomes that we were trying to target happen best in option two. Next in your memo is just a reminder of what the schedule for the MAC has been since July of 23 and how many hours the pool has been open to the public since that time. And really just reminding the board that part of the reason that we ended the fiscal year negatively and had to reduce hours by so much is that we had that big tax correction that impacted our revenues in 2024-25. And so now, given the failure of ballot measures 2 years in a row, we're in a position of we want to operate within our means and try and meet as many stakeholder requests as possible. So when you look at option one is exactly what we did in the fall, except it breaks out those open swims into two different open swims on Saturday and Sunday. And there's a lot of pros and cons to this particular option. The core five staff really like this option because it keeps us open till 7 o'clock on Wednesdays and Fridays, which we think is really important. We are concerned that it overfloods the market with open swims. Right now, we're not filling our open swims. We're about half full. And so when you think about supply and demand, when you're already having too much supply and you add more, it dilutes how many people are actually showing up. So that is our concern with option one. The other piece of option one is our fall schedule came in at about 84% of budgeted revenues for earned revenues. That means that we've already under collected for what we've spent. So from our perspective, we like option two, and I'm going to take this. Oh, and the other thing I need to point out too on this is we did a analysis of staffing costs and tried to compare it back to our budget. Did I skip a page? I thought I had oh, it's right here. And so when you look at our budget for personnel expenses, we've got about $145,000 of budget authority in personnel. So that's the cap. And if we go with option one, we're going to spend an estimated $140,000. So we'll still end with $5,000 more in savings than we expected. I'm going to recommend that that's not enough because of some of the unknowns we have going into the rest of the fiscal year. So if you continue to option two splits that Saturday opens to two open swims, and it adds a little bit of time in the morning for lap swim and family swim. This used to be a pretty popular time for families, especially with toddlers, to come. And there's a lot of excitement amongst staff. We've had some requests for Spanish-only swim lessons for families. We wanted to pilot some of these things, and we think a Saturday morning is a good time to do that. It keeps us open till 7 o'clock on Wednesdays and Fridays. And we just think that this option meets all of those initial wants. You know, we meet a lot of different stakeholders with their requests. We also save cash flow for summer. And so you'll see with option two, we are saving approximately $25,000 on that paid personnel costs because we're cutting out Sunday. And I want to be real clear about that. The reason we're recommending cutting out Sunday is twofold. One, it's been really low attendance. And two, we just did our seasonal staff availability for spring, and not one seasonal staff member is available on Sundays. So that's a real concern for me from an operational perspective, because then we're looking at overtime for our core five who are hourly in order to accomplish that.
Is the core five still 30 hours or are they 40?
So we have 2 hourly full-timers who are 30 to 40 hours. And then we have 2 hourly part-timers who are supposed to work less than 30, but they've been working consistently 30 to 35. So if we do one more season with them working over that 30, we're gonna offer them full-time employment with benefits and everything associated with it. And so they don't want to work over 30. They're doing it to be good team players right now. So I really need to figure out how to get them back under 30 hours.
And would this do it here? Would option 2 do it?
Option 2 does that, yes.
Okay.
And.
Yes, thank you for that.
Could you explain, just talk about that a little?
Yes, thank you.
Back to the discussion.
I put a note to do it and then I didn't look at my notes, so thank you for that. So in the spring, from that 12:30 to 3 o'clock time period, we end up having rentals mostly from the school district for end of year parties and incentive swims, particularly with the middle school. And so when we do that, our staff aren't clocking out for a long 3-hour lunch. Instead, they're working those hours. We have second grade swim lessons in February or March, and those happen in the mornings when we would normally be operating anyway. And then we do have homeschool swim lessons that happen once a week during that break time between 12:30 and 3. So if there's programming happening like a rental, and those are on a case by case, they come in, we see if staff are available, and then we schedule it. Those costs recover at or over 100%. Whereas most of our other activities don't cost recover. If we don't have programming happening, then those hourly staff are clocked out and they're not getting paid during that break time. So they're only clocked in if we have programming happening or if we have projects that have to get completed.
And you said the swim team practice times are
4 to 5:30, Tuesday through Friday right now. Swim team season is over February 21st for the high school, and the youth team is also going to be done at the end of February.
so like Tuesday isn't on this schedule, so do we staff lifeguards for that on Tuesday?
No, so that is only through February 21st, and this schedule starts the 25th. So we don't need Tuesdays anymore once we get to February 25th. Let's see. So that's option 2. The other thing that we like about option 2 is with the unknowns around pending litigation, it gives us some cushion in terms of savings. If we go over that $25,000 insurance reimbursement. If it gets resolved sooner, perhaps we can add Sundays back in or Tuesday mornings, depending on, because the data shows Tuesday mornings used to be the busiest time. And so we can look at that depending on the outcome of that situation. But from a financial perspective, this option saves the most in terms of personnel budget. When you look at option 3, our staff had a lot of creative names for this option. I settled on least favorite. Part of that is that it has us closing at 6 o'clock on Wednesdays and Fridays, and we just don't think we want to go back to that. It's really important to us to be open later. So we would prefer to be open till 7 Wednesday and Friday to being open on Sundays. And so those are the 3 options. Option 3 does save us around $15,000. And I think we would eat into it with overtime needed from those 4 hourly core staff members. Just to continue on with your packet, you have data from our operating days, September through December. You can see that at that 11:30 time period, activity really tanks. We've been using that time to do first aid and lifeguard skills. So, we've not been wasting that time, but I think we're better off being closed. And then you can see it picks back up in the evening. And then the next one is open swim participation by date and type. Our no school swims have been really low attended. as were our Sunday open swims. But you can see our Saturday open swims have been picking up a little bit, but we're still not at cost recovery. Cost recovery happens at 120, and the most we've had is 80. And then we do have historical data going back 10 years, showing us membership and drop-in usage. As you can see, members tend to use the pool during the week, whereas drop-in members tend to use the pool on Saturdays and Sundays. So there's a bit of a opposites effect happening there.
Well, doesn't that mean that the revenue coming out after these or whatever shift in the week, it's basically your members coming at different times?
So you want to remember, yes, there's revenue, but there's also a much higher expense associated with those as well. So it's both sides of the equation.
Yeah, I mean, it costs to be open, but it also costs to be closed.
It costs more for an open swim than it does for a lap swim independent work. That's what I mean by
Yeah.
that. Yes, there are costs to being closed as well,
And
absolutely.
what has the party rental? How full have those been? I looked at the website a couple times and there weren't many slots, but has that stayed through like hang on a minute, through January? Are those booking up?
So I just looked and we had 2 booked out through February out of all of the Saturday options that we have. So it's 2 out of 7 or 8 that are booked right now. It hasn't been very busy during the holiday season. Since Thanksgiving, it's been, well, there were a couple weeks there where we had quite a few rentals and then it got down again once school got out, I would say.
Yeah, I liked Janelle's suggestion last week or last meeting about splitting the open swim to give the opportunity for that party revenue to come in.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, splitting it and then taking away Sunday takes you back to square one.
The only other thing I would add is the cost recovery worksheets are in the back. You can see an example cost recovery estimate versus what happened on December 27th, which just happened to be the one that was happening when I was doing that analysis. And then you can see the difference between a 3-hour and a 2-hour open swim.
And do you have this on a time that had a party?
There was,
Or the parties, I mean, I know the cost recovery is different for a party, but we're looking at that day as a whole.
we did not
Yeah.
include the parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did not include the parties because they're not always guaranteed. So it's just based on the registration revenue of 120 swimmers.
And we have to take that into consideration when you have a party, if they're part of that 120. Yeah. And when they pay extra for the rental of this, above and beyond the swimming, how does that work?
So what we do is, I think it's 240 or 260, and you get 20 seat spots with that. So you're basically paying $50 to $100 for having the tables reserved and being guaranteed those 20 spots. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
The audience, ask a question.
No, this is our meeting. So did you guys have any more discussion?
I didn't, just figure out what would be the best option for us. And obviously saving the most money would be the best option. So we can have that reserve, I think. So I'm thinking option 2. So
Is this, the option 2, is that worked up with? That's only working up the staffing expenses. Have you taken into consideration the how would you have it take into consideration the amount that could be made with you were wanting to add swim lessons on Saturday mornings?
So the easiest way to calculate the impact to the budget is based on the expenses, because when we look at budget authority, it's the expenses that. So if we bring in more revenue, that's great. It goes to the ending fund balance, but you cannot go over your expenses budget. And so I did not do an analysis of revenues because they may or may not happen, but we know that these will be the costs for staffing for each of these schedules. So it's a direct cost that you can estimate and identify.
And is there any way that the activities that you were wanting to pilot in that 10 to 12 time could happen during sometime during the 1 to 5:30 time? If it's
We could do it on an evening, on a Wednesday or Friday evening. We wouldn't do it during an open swim. So that was the alternative. If we don't do a Saturday morning, we talked about on the week in between swim sessions, because we do 3 weeks of swim lessons and then we have a week off and then 3 weeks of swim lessons, that we could pilot some things in that off week. So that's an alternative if we don't do that Saturday morning.
And would it be possible to do like if you hosted a party during this, that is, you're wanting to do exercise classes or just swim lessons at the pilot time from 10 to 12?
That was we were talking about Spanish speaking swim lessons, toddler time. We've been doing little otters one Friday a month, and that's been really popular. So we thought about doing some little otters. We haven't, beyond that, there are some ideas for special events that we could do. But whether or not they would happen during that time or during a different time, I don't know yet.
And then the lifeguarding cost is just lower if that time is programmed not as a swim.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think parents would like to come in and do, you know, easy on anybody's schedule to do swim lessons on a Saturday.
Alright, so we need to vote. Yes, any more questions?
I would just really like to see Sunday worked in. I think we have to give people stability on the schedule and
Bring forth. Harry, this is our meeting, and I know that you know the meeting well. We have thought about that. This is our meeting, and if you can't be quiet, I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to ask you to leave. So,
We vote on each one then? So how we're gonna do this, or does anybody have a favorite, or?
I'm moving, that's up option 2.
and I'm in a second option too. I know it's not good to lose Sundays at this time, but that doesn't mean we can't add them back in come spring. For the reasons they've been poorly attended.
Right.
And yeah, Sundays have been poorly attended, but it's been through the holiday seasons. But we have to look at the budget, and I think it gives staff, I know we have staff that are working outside jobs, it gives them some consistency for the next several months. Yes.
but we're adding a time slot on Saturday to take away Sunday. I don't think that feels counterintuitive to say, okay, it's too much to be open on a Sunday, but adding more weekend time.
Well, the difference is the open swim Sunday, the staffing for the open swim versus the staffing for just that Saturday.
Yeah.
Which if there is that demand for the swim lessons, we throw it out there and there's that demand for the Spanish speaking swim lessons, that'd be a great slot to.
Well, maybe that could happen on Sunday. And have,
It would be great, we don't have a budget.
what's the difference, Saturday 10 to 12, Sunday 10 to 12? For the piloting those new programs. Cause I just feel it's important that the pool be open on the weekend. Like at the times that people can't come, cause then if you wanna go to the pool and you work all week. And you wanna bring your kids, you have Saturday, but if you have a wedding or a sport or something on a Saturday, you know. It just gives one more day for someone to come in and spend their money.
That is true, but I think right now, the way I feel, right now is we have to look at the budget constraints we have, and we have to save money. So,
That and consider the split schedules that staff already works all week.
right.
So Cora, what you're thinking is if we took that Saturday, that 2.5 hours, and at least offered it for Sunday, which would be only family time. It would be parents, little toddlers, little otters, Spanish speaking, that's all it would be. For 2.5 hours, it wouldn't be swim.
I mean, yeah, I think that would give people an opportunity to come into the pool. If they needed to take swim lessons or come in with their toddlers.
Then we're asking staff, there's a whole nother day. We're asking staff to.
I understand that, and also it's a rec district. So the rec happens on the weekends. I feel strongly that rec happens on the weekends, so. You know, I know it's challenging, but I would rather see, I mean, that's why I was asking about what is actually happening from that 12 to 3:30 time. But then like, you know. Cutting off at that 11 o'clock instead of 11:30. Well, like if there's other places during the week where we can crunch down the people that have memberships are going to, you know, those people have shown that they can shift their schedules to come. So if we could crunch down an hour somewhere else to make that happen on a Sunday, to make it worth the staff coming in, I think that would be important, that we allow an option for people to come in.
I have a question. Is there a set of rules like Robert's? Okay, with motion, we have a second.
Right.
The discussion was already done, the motion fails, the discussion.
Okay.
Moving forward.
Okay, moving forward, we have a second on option 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. All against?
Wait.
I'm waiting to hear Janelle.
Janelle, are you there?
I'm here. I'm an I for now until things change, but I agree that the first thing that we need to add back is Sunday. If we can close out the case and have better funding, I think that was what I talked to Courtney about when I looked at this schedule before also, is that figuring out a way to have the Sunday swim. And I also suggested trying to cut back even to like 11 instead of 11:30 on the weekdays to maximize time, but it just costs so much to have the lifeguards for the open swims, and we weren't getting enough people there to cost or cover Sundays. So those are my comments that I made as well. But so I'm an I for the option 2 for now, but I really am pushing for that to change as soon as we have enough funding to be open more.
And we can always discuss that, right? Okay. So that's 4 ayes and opposed? 4? Okay. Okay. We have 1 nay. Okay. So I guess we're gonna go with option 2, 4-1. Okay. All right. So let's move on now. Okay, we'll move on to number 7, review and approve a letter to resolve a written complaint response by the board initiated on December 15, 2025 by the board. Initiated on December 15, 2025.
I met with Debbie Stinson just briefly. I'm going to say it was an unfortunate encounter all the way around. I reviewed the videotape. I listened to what Debbie said in the meeting and what the drone operator said in the meeting, and There's always two sides to every story. But Debbie felt that things have been going fine, so she feels that there's been resolution, so I think we'll leave it for.
Well,
Yeah, meeting her, Debbie. Yeah.
Good, good. So just to clarify, the drone never came out of the box, never went.
No, and staff have a better idea now how to, I'm gonna say, diffuse the situation. This was something new for everybody that was involved, and when Debbie said no and she was gonna leave, the drone operator kept talking. Where staff know now to say, no, she said no, let's leave, it's over, done, so, yeah.
Okay.
Are we going to be looking at any policies for it as a result of what this has brought up? Like maybe we need to have
the policy.
I think it was staff training. Watch the video and the staff person that went with that drone operator about, to talk to the class. Could have been more assertive to say at this point, no, we're not. That staff person walked away, I don't know whether they got hauled over or what, so there was only the instructor, in the pool. And then there was this back and forth banter going on between Debbie and this drone operator, which that staff member now, I feel would know how to use that and say that it's over, but.
but as far as like training for our volunteers, or how can we not have this be a learning experience where a patron feels so uncomfortable they're having to exit an opposite way?
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary actually, because I watched the full video, and. What, somebody feels uncomfortable, I couldn't hear what was being said, I could see that it was banter back and forth, but I did sit and listen to everything Debbie had to say about it. And totally understand her position, but you can review the policy, I don't know if there's a policy change that needs to be made, or I think it's been addressed that the staff now would have a better understanding of the deal. And
Which policy?
the drone operator. He had signed back before what they videoed the.
Yeah, it was in October.
Yeah.
And we do have a photography and video policy. And I don't believe that because this hadn't happened, it was an opportunity for staff to learn how to implement the policy correctly. Because the policy is, you get asked, and if you say no.
I read it.
If you have some suggestions.
I think as a result of this, we should probably look at reviewing what it looks like when we have. I mean, ultimately, the board is responsible for what happens when a patron is filmed. Where is that film going? Like, I think those things, like a drone policy, or that probably is something we should look at. As far as who's editing, who's releasing, is it released under us? Is it released under someone else? I think that's one section, and then how many volunteers do we have?
One.
We have 2, 3. We have 8 volunteers currently.
And what are they?
Several of them are pickleball club members. 2 of them are senior aqua healing fitness instructors. And then we have our videography drone operator.
Where do you want to take that on and bring something back to the next meeting, or if you got time, the next meeting, flip everything?
All right, so I guess I need a motion to approve the letter to resolve the written complaint. So approved.
I said,
All in favor? Aye. Janelle?
I
Okay. Would I get an aye from you for?
Yes.
Okay, so all in favor?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, So now we are going to go into executive session, and the time now is 6:06. So I'm going to ask the public to please step out.
You want to read number 8?
Oh, read number 8.
Yep.
Okay, we have something. Number 8. Okay, executive session. The board will convene in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660. 2H, to consult with their attorney regarding their legal rights and the duties in regard to current litigation or litigation that is more likely than not to be filed. The executive session is not open to the public. However, representatives of the news media and designated individuals will be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience will be asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session except to state the general subject of the executive session. As previously announced, didn't get that out. No decision may be made in the executive session. Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Can you say it again? Because I had already muted.
Oh, yeah, for the record, I would likely recuse myself and, not take part in this conversation.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, we're going to enter back into our special meeting at 6:35 p.m. So, okay, so now we're going to adjourn our meeting at 6:35 p.m.
Yep.
Okay.
No board member highlights.
Not for a special agenda that I was keeping.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, guys, till next time.
Next meeting is the 4th.
6, and I'll be dialing in.
January 26th.
Yeah,
January 26th.
isn't it? 26? Tuesday.
1, 2, 3.